Hey my friends, if you are new here, welcome, and if you're not, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ellen. I'm a burnout and stress management coach, and in this video, we're going to be tackling technology. In particular, the Apple Watch. I'm going to be telling you today how I use my Apple Watch to stay organized, to stay calm and manage my stress, and to stay as productive as humanly possible. I have never filmed a video where I have to film down and look at my Apple Watch, so I don't know how ridiculous this is going to be, but I'm going to do my best. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so before we get into all of the nitty gritty about the things that I do on my Apple Watch, I want to say a little bit of background here because it actually wasn't too long ago that I was recording and writing blogs about how I stopped using my Apple Watch to use an Amazon Halo View, which for a lot of people might be a little bit of a shocker, but I actually did not enjoy my first 6 or so months of having an Apple Watch. I was gifted my first Apple Watch by an ex-boyfriend. He was upgrading his, and at that point, I just couldn't see myself dropping a couple $100s on a smartwatch, especially a watch that I felt like would just kind of harass my peace with notifications and constantly be telling me about things that I frankly didn't care about. So I really just couldn't see myself getting an Apple Watch. But when he gave me his, I was like, okay, whatever, I will try it out. And actually, after using his hand-me-down Series 5 for about 6 months, I decided I didn't like it, and I actually got an Amazon Halo View. Now, don't let the bad reviews of the Amazon Halo View fool you. I think there are a lot of people out there who just decide that they hate Amazon so much that they're just going to give everything Amazon releases a bad review. I actually really didn't mind the Halo View. I think it was simple, it was functional, it did what I needed it to do. I actually really like the point system they use for tracking activity. I like it a lot better actually than the rings that the Apple Watch uses. But there were just some things about it that I felt like it was lacking. Probably one of the biggest things is I wanted a more reliable way to measure my sleep. And I was learning more and more about how people use their Apple Watches through watching YouTube videos. And also realizing the potential for using an Apple Watch for stress management and stress tracking using heart rate variability or HRV, which I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. But all of that about an Apple Watch really piqued my interest. So I kind of dusted off the old Series 5 and started using it again. And I started to really enjoy it. Actually, saying I really enjoyed it is probably not emphasizing it. I actually love my Apple Watch now. I like it so much that I actually ended up replacing my Series 5 with a Series 8 this fall. Mostly because I didn't really like looking down at my wrist and constantly being reminded of my ex-boyfriend. But I am loving the Apple Watch since I switched back. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. So as I go through this, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I've been doing to not only help me stay organized and productive, but also to stay calm, manage my stress, and help me just keep my sanity with my Apple Watch. And some of the ways in which it has both enabled me to do that, but also some of the things that I've done to make it so that this little computer that I carry around on my wrist doesn't add to my stressors. Because I think that's one of the big things we potentially risk when it comes to having too much technology in our lives. So the first thing I do is I use focus modes. This is something I picked up from K Digital Studio on YouTube. So I set up all of my focus modes to be associated with specific backgrounds and apps that really set the mood of what I'm trying to do. For example, do not disturb. I have a DND setting set up to go from 12 to 7 a.m. every day, and I'll sometimes activate it during the day when I don't want anyone to be bugging me. But it's set up with some lovely, really calming images and a complete absence of apps and widgets, both on my iPhone and on my Apple Watch. I also have a driving focus mode. This is automatically turned on when I start driving, and it switches to a mode with a black lock screen on my phone and a very basic lock screen on my watch with no apps or widgets available. So two of my favorite focus modes are actually my fitness and my work focus mode. My fitness is something that I can activate manually, but it's also set up to automatically come on when I access either Beachbody On Demand or when I start a workout. It switches to a fitness-focused watch face on my Apple Watch, which allows me to both see my activity rings in the top left corner, access Spotify in the top right corner, and to see both my fitness as it's happening and start a workout straight from the app face. Plus, it also has a fitness image on my iPhone lock screen and fitness and health focused apps on a custom home screen. The other place that I really like to use my Apple Watch for is a work focus mode. And similar to the other focus modes, it has visual images that help kind of trigger and mentally switch me into work mode away from personal mode. On my iPhone, it has a custom home screen with my calendars as well as any work associated apps, and also a custom watch face on my phone, which tells me the time, has some work related images, and also has my calendar linked in the bottom right corner. So pretty simple in terms of app faces. You can see I have a very simple aesthetic when it comes to my work and my personal app faces, but that's kind of how I like it. I really like using focus modes because, gasp, it helps keep me focused. And I love the visuals to remind me what the focuses are. The images put me into a work or a fitness related headspace. And I love the ability to restrict apps. I'm a big believer in out of sight, out of mind. So if I don't have like Instagram glaring at me from my home screen, I'm less likely to get distracted by it. And I really, really like that. The other big thing that I've done on my Apple Watch that is so different than the first time I started using it is I have hardly any notifications that come through my Apple Watch. And I know for a lot of people that might be like, well, what the hell's the point of having an Apple Watch then if you're not gonna have it notify you? For me, it's really about keeping my sanity. As I said, I'm a burnout and stress management coach. So it's about me not getting too distracted by things, not having things interrupt my peace too often. I really, really am conscious of overwhelm in my life because of the work I do and because of my own natural tendencies. So not having hardly any notifications coming through is really important for me when it comes to using an Apple Watch. Notifications were actually one of the big reasons that I stopped using my Apple Watch back in June. I had a speaking engagement and I forgot to put it into a focus mode and turn off the notifications, and I had a group chat that was absolutely blowing up. And I don't care how focused you are, when you have something pinging and vibrating on your wrist, it is really, really hard to stay focused. And I needed to. I was doing a speaking engagement, for God's sake. So that was one of the big things that I knew I needed to do differently this time around, was to really consciously limit my notifications. When I started using my Apple Watch again, I diligently went through and I turned off all of my notifications. I literally, just about every single app in my Apple Watch is set up with either the notifications off or the notifications customized. I hardly have anything that has the mirror my phone bit in it because I don't want it to mirror my phone. I want it to, if anything, the only thing I really want it to do is to vibrate a little bit on my wrist. And that's it. I don't want any pings. I don't want any notifications. And I frankly want the vibrations to be very, very minimal. The only apps I think I have right now that are actually pushing through and sending notifications are an I Am Affirmations app, which I'm honestly considering turning off the notifications for, my stress monitor app, and my messaging apps, like the actual messages app and WhatsApp, because I have a lot of friends that use WhatsApp. I honestly don't even have my phone calls going through my Apple Watch. And this was actually something that over time I realized really, really irritated me. Like, I reserve the right to ignore phone calls. And if they're coming through to my Apple Watch, that makes it a lot harder to do that. Especially because, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of spam phone calls. And I don't want to be notified of that. Like, just leave me alone. I also obviously use my Apple Watch for health tracking. Naturally, I am using it for fitness tracking and I'm using it for sleep tracking. The sleep tracking was one of the biggest reasons I switched back to the Apple Watch, in addition to the stress tracking, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And I'm not going to belabor this too much because it's pretty straightforward. It's basically what everybody uses their Apple Watch for. But one thing I did do when I started using it again is, again, I turned off all notifications. I do not need my Apple Watch making me feel like I'm not doing enough, that I'm not standing enough, that I'm not moving enough. I do enough of that to myself as somebody who's very high achieving. I don't need my watch to do that. What instead I've done is I use I call them widgets, but I don't think that's what they're called. Here, let's actually see what the hell they're called. They're called complications. That's what they are called. Complications are basically like the widgets that you have on your phone, but on your watch. And so one of the big ways I keep track of things like my sleep tracking and my fitness tracking is not by getting notified, but by just having that complication, that little widget show up on my Apple Watch. So if I'm not sure how much I've worked out that day or moved that day, I just go in and I look and, oh, okay, I'm not doing very good today. And so then that kind of reminds me to get up and move. But I don't need it to sit there and be like, you should stand every however often. I just find that irritating and I don't need that. I also charge my Apple Watch during my downtime. Another big pet peeve I had with my Apple Watch when I first started it, granted the original one that I had was older, is the battery life. I think the battery life on the Series 5 that I had prior to this was pretty degraded, and therefore it didn't really last even 24 hours. And that was super, super irritating to me that I had to charge it so much. So when I upgraded, one of the favorite things I love about my upgrade is that the battery life lasts longer, especially because I have so few notifications, but also the charge happens really, really quickly. So one of the big things that I do when I'm charging so that I don't lose out on tracking any of my activity or any sleep or anything like that is I wear this while I sleep, and then I usually charge it during downtime. Like I charge it maybe in the evening while I'm watching TV, or I charge it in the morning while I'm doing my morning routine. That's another big thing that I do to kind of make the battery life on the Apple Watch a little less of an interruption to my day. I'm so excited for this next part, because this next part is the biggest reason why I went back to using an Apple Watch, and it is for stress tracking and stress management. This has been such a game changer for me, because I realized as I was looking at getting a new fitness wearable, because the Halo View, as much as I liked it and how I liked how simple it was, it just wasn't cutting it in a couple places. I really was looking for something that had some sort of a readiness score. I looked at Oura rings. I looked at, different Garmin options. I wanted something that could give me a sort of score that captured not only how well I slept, but how I had recovered from the day before, to tell me kind of how much I should push myself on any given day. But I didn't necessarily want to get like an Oura ring, because I really was starting to enjoy having a watch, and I just couldn't see myself having a watch and a ring. That just seemed like too much. So I started looking into the ways that you could do this on the Apple Watch, and I was pleasantly surprised by the number of apps out there that you can use for stress tracking. The first one I used was an app called Training Today. And what I really like about this one, it's actually the only one that I have, as of recording this, paid for. I actually just paid for it like before I started the video. What I like about Training Today is it very simply gives you a score from 1 to 10 to tell you how ready you are for training that day. And then you can use that to kind of make adjustments to how hard of a workout you're going to do that day, how much you're going to push yourself that day, even just mentally. So I like the simple aspects of Training Today. It's also the cheapest one that I found of the three that I'm going to talk to you about. You can actually download it for a life for $9.99, which is pretty freaking cool considering how expensive some of the other ones are. I also really like Training Today because it's the only one I found that actually has a widget that you can put on your iPhone. So when I go in to my main view of my iPhone screen, I can actually see my training score right there in the widgets. And I don't believe any of the other ones have that, at least that I found. Another app that I really liked that I'm kind of using in conjunction with Training Today is called Stress Monitor. This is probably the one that I use the most now, because what I really like about this app is not only can I connect it to a complication on my Apple Watch and constantly see it update over time and kind of tell me what my stress is like, but what I also really like with this one is that it gives you real-time looks at your heart rate variability over time. Heart rate variability is a very, very common metric used to monitor stress. When your heart rate variability drops down too low, that means you're really stressed out and you might need to kind of cool it. And if it's higher and it's a little bit more stable, that means you're handling and managing stress very well. So all of these apps use heart rate variability to manage and monitor your stress. But what I like about Stress Monitor is it's doing that in real time. So over the course of the day, it'll tell me I'm great. It'll tell me that I need to pay attention. It'll tell me that I'm overloaded. It gives me these little reminders, and it's one of the few things on my Apple Watch that I actually let send me notifications, because I want to know when I'm overloaded, when I'm starting to get stressed out, because what that teaches me, it starts to teach me what things are stressing me out, but it's also teaching me what physical signs in my body I actually need to pay attention to when it comes to stress. So I really, really like Stress Monitor, and it and Training Today are probably the two apps that I use the most. The third app is Welltory. Welltory is also one that I let give me notifications. Welltory is kind of insane. Insane in both a good way and a bad way. Welltory has a really, really cool interface, and it takes into account just about everything related to health. It takes into account meditations, your sleep, as well as your heart rate variability and your stress. It also gives you this really cool readout of both your stress percentage, how much energy you have that day, and your health stability. It gives each of those in percentages over the course of the day so you can kind of see how things are changing. Now, Welltory is by far the most expensive one on this list. I think it's like $200 for life and like $70 per year or something like that. By far the most expensive. It does, of these apps, give you the most information of all of the apps that I'm talking about today, But with information comes a little bit of overwhelm. I actually find I use Welltory the least because I am somebody who's just kind of very susceptible to overwhelm. If you give me a bunch of information, I feel like I need to use it. I feel like I need to do something with it. And sometimes that can be a bad thing when it comes to stress management. So I get a little overwhelmed using Welltory, and I don't tend to use it too much. But those are the 3 apps that I recommend, and all of these main features that I've talked about are accessible in the free versions. Like I said, I literally didn't download any paid versions of these apps until right before I started recording this video. I've been using free versions up until that point. So basically, you don't need to pay anything to be able to get the awesome benefits of checking out these apps. Using stress management and stress monitoring apps has been probably one of the biggest game changers for me and one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, of having a Apple Watch, and I highly, highly recommend it if you are somebody who is prone to stress and wants to get a better handle on it. The other things that I love about having an Apple Watch for organization and productivity and kind of just keeping my sanity and my calm, I'm just going to quickly list off. Firstly, the ability to locate my phone. This is invaluable because I don't know about you, but my phone falls between like couch cushions all the time, or I'll just like put it in a weird place and then I completely lose track of it. So the fact that you can simply just swipe up and hit the button, here we'll do it right now since I'm recording with my phone. Oh, I thought you'd be able to hear the thingy, but it actually just stopped my video when I hit the button. It sends a ping from your phone to help you find where it is, and I really, really like that for just like ease and sanity and always knowing that I don't need somebody to call my phone anymore. I can just ping it from my Apple Watch, which is really handy. I also really like the Mindfulness app for just like quick breathing exercises. If I have a moment and, for example, Stress Monitor has just told me I'm a little overloaded or I need to pay attention, I can pull up the Mindfulness app, do just like a quick breathing exercise and just kind of get myself centered once again. Also, the last couple things are just things that I really appreciate the ability to track in my Apple Watch. I really appreciate that I can track my cycle using Clue or various other apps. I've actually started to just use the health app inside of the Apple system, which I have grown to really, really love, as well as the medication tracking. I not only appreciate the fact that it reminds me when I need to take medications, I just said meditations. I appreciate that it reminds me to take medications, but also that I can go in and I can check them off inside of the app. And then probably the last thing, which is, I don't even know if it's related to organization and productivity, but honestly, I've really grown to appreciate it, is I don't know about you guys, but I have double like authentication set up on like 90% of my accounts. So anytime I log into a bank or whatever account, it'll send me a text to my phone before it'll let me look inside of my accounts. I have actually really grown to love that I can just look down at my wrist to get whatever the code is and then type it in on my computer, and my phone could be in my bedroom completely across my apartment and I don't need to go get it. It's little, but it's one of those things that sometimes the little things add up to give us so much sanity. So these are some of the things that I do with my Apple Watch that have converted me back to being an Apple Watch lover. Actually just converted me to being an Apple Watch lover because I was not before, that I just really appreciate from an organization perspective, from productivity perspective, from focus, but also just with helping me stay calm, stay centered, and stay sane. So with that, I really appreciate you being here, watching. If you've got some things that you love inside of your Apple Watch for productivity, for sanity, for calm, for stress management, go ahead and drop a comment below, or drop a comment and let me know what your favorite tip was for today. If you've got any questions about any of the apps I mentioned, definitely drop a comment and let me know. But if you are loving what you're seeing on this channel, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button. And with that, I will talk to you next time.